Good morning, everybody. Joe, can you let me know? It looks like we got a quorum, but let me know when you've confirmed and we can get going. Tech exec did go a little bit long this morning, so folks who were there might just be logging in, so bear with us for a second.
Checking, can you hear me?
Yep, I see you, I hear you. Just waiting for Joe
Oh,
now.
I apologize. I said a couple times I think we have a quorum and I was muted.
You were muted. Oh, okay. All right, we're ready to go then. I'll call the meeting to order. Joe, can you put the agenda up on the screen?
Question.
Okay, we have the agenda up on the screen. Any changes to the agenda for today? All right, seeing none, then our agenda is approved. Joe, can you pull up the meeting minutes from January 4th? Okay, the meeting minutes are up. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
This is Elaine. Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay,
This is Joe with Anoka. I'll second that.
okay, thank you. Any comment or discussion on the meeting minutes? Seeing none, Joe, can you call the roll?
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
McPherson.
Aye.
Robjit.
Aye.
Labrie.
Aye.
Ellos.
Aye.
Isaacson. Oh,
Scott Mareck for Isaacson, aye.
thank you, Scott. Freeze.
Craig Jensen here for Lisa.
I apologize. Greg, I believe you're now the member, right?
Yep. Aye.
Okay. Leitner.
Maddie Dahlheimer is alternate for Leitner. Aye.
Okay. Witter.
Aye.
Kotsukos.
Aye.
Peterson. Steve
Aye.
Peterson. Larson.
Aye.
Harrington.
Aye.
Crockett.
Aye.
AO.
I'm here, but I wasn't the last meeting, but
Okay.
I'm here today. Yeah.
Stain. Reef.
I'll abstain too.
Fighton. Fighton. Pittaparthy. Eddie.
Aye.
Sabota. Or Novak. Turner Bargain.
Abstain because I was absent. Thanks.
Keel.
Aye.
Howley. Omi.
Aye.
Ellis.
Abstain.
How's Lucher?
Aye.
Ashfeld.
Abstain to being absent.
Michael Thompson, I know is not here. I do believe he has an alternate. Is somebody here for Thompson? Okay. Beckwith.
Aye.
Hager.
Aye.
Mayel, Kathleen Mayel, I believe you're the new member in for.
Yeah, hi, Kathleen Mail, and I'll abstain since I wasn't there.
So FY, Kathleen's the new member for Minneapolis Planning, replacing Jim Vole. Kurtz. No, not Kurtz. Nick Peterson.
Yeah, Nick Peterson here. Aye.
And Dermody.
Aye.
I'm sure that
Okay.
is definitely a quorum.
All right. Minutes are approved. Thank you, everybody. Joe, is there anybody here for public comment on the business before the committee today?
No, Chair, there is not.
Okay. Tab report, Elaine?
Thanks, Chair. TAB met on January 18th. Vice Chair Gattell was chairing in place of Hubbard's absence. She announced and welcomed some new TAB members and alternates. For Anoka County, the new TAB member is Julie Jepson with Matt Look as the alternate. Carver County is a new alternate, John Fahey. Dakota County also a new alternate, Bill Drosty. And Washington County, a new alternate, Carla Begum. And Metro Cities had appointed Jeff Weisensell from Rosemont as a city representative for replacing Gary Hansen when he became the Suburban Transit Association TAB member. And Metro Cities will be replacing the open position for Julie Jepson before February. And then Met Council will be making appointments in early February for these 4 citizen positions that are open. And for MnDOT report, Sheila Calpe reported that in 2023 so far, at that time through January 15th, there were 9 traffic-related deaths on the roadways. And let's see. They are working on IIJA. They hired a consultant to look at projects that can fit into funding categories to determine what to apply for. For Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, Todd Bewin reported that Frank Kolash has been appointed Assistant Commissioner for Air and Climate Policy. And he will be the MPCA tab representative going forward with Todd Bewan continuing as alternate. MPCA has $664,000 available to install level 2 EV charging stations in public places, workplaces, and multi-unit dwelling units. And the grant opportunity is open through February 28th, and the information is available on their website for applying. The MAQ report, Bridget Reef reported on the capital improvements and operations at MSP Airport. Airlines are using larger airplanes to carry more passengers, which helps with air traffic. And the reliever airport operations grew during the pandemic versus the other airports. The Met Council report, Charles Carlson reported that Governor Walz reappointed Charlie Zelli as the council chair. And they've appointed he's also appointed a 15-member nominating committee who will review the approximately 90 applicants for the 16 council positions. And the applicants will be narrowed down for interviews. And they are, by state statute, need to be appointed in place by March. The Suburban Transit Association, Gary Hansen reported that all suburban transit providers are experiencing slow but consistent growth and are at about 50 to 60% pre-pandemic ridership. The on-demand response service is growing with demand meeting or exceeding capacity. Southwest Transit is piloting a TNC, a Transportation Network Company partnership with Lyft. And so that's in the process of being developed. Let's see, for the TAC report, Jeni reported on the committee chairs and vice chairs. For business items, TAB approved the Metropolitan Airports Commission CIP program. This was delayed as the December TAB meeting was canceled because of the weather. So they finally got that approved. They appointed the TAB Executive Committee for 2023. The members will be Trista Maida Castillo from Ramsey County and Mary Liz Holberg, Dakota County, Mitra Jalali from St. Paul, Mark Winshuttle, and Mark Stevenson representing cities, Chris Geisler as a citizen member, and Brian Martinson as the modal representative. They also adopted the 2023 safety performance targets and 3 streamlined tip amendments that came through TAC. And then they heard information on the congestion management process and the regional development guide. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for Elaine on the TAB report? All right. TAC exec did meet this morning. We discussed the business before the committee today. There are a number of tip amendments for us to consider this morning, as well as some additional items from funding and programming. Hopefully you've looked through your packet, but in the items from funding and programming, there are some scope changes in there, and we spent a bit of time this morning talking through those scope changes. I'm going to be asking funding and programming to go ahead and take a look at our scope change policy and make any recommendations for updates that they would see fit as a result of, we haven't looked at that for a while, and we've had some of these scope changes. There are scopes that are changing and money staying with those projects, and I just am questioning whether that should be looked at and reevaluated with our policy. Some of these situations are not well reflected in our current policy. So I'm asking funding and programming to go ahead and take a look at that and come back with any recommendations as a result of their conversation. We also had some conversation around the performance targets that are coming forward from the planning subcommittee today. And just kind of relating that action item to the recent conversation that was held. I think a number of you attended there as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Joe to walk us through the 2 streamlined tip amendments that we have before us today.
Thank you, Chair. And I know we have at least one person who's at their first meeting, maybe two. So I'll talk briefly about streamlined tip amendments. I know I did this last month. But the standard tip amendment process would have a tip amendment coming through starting at funding and programming. To be frank, we don't do a lot of those. Those are reserved for any tip amendment that has a particular impact on either a regionally significant project or on a regional solicitation project that's undergoing a scope change or something like that. So with more routine amendments, we have what's called the streamlined tip amendment process. We bring it first to TAC and then to TAB. TAB sees it actually as a consent on their consent agenda unless somebody pulls it. And at TAC, I deliver the description of the project simply because it hasn't been through a committee, and so our committee chairs would not be in a position to do that. So with that, feel free to ask questions about the process, but I think I'll go into, if nobody stops me, I'll go into the description of what's going on. So we do have 2 tip amendments. However, that actually covers 6 change requests, and the reason for that is that we combined them into 2 groups because we have a lot of items here, and you don't want to hear me roll call that many times. So this, so we have 3 items here. I'll go through the first, or 3 project changes here. I'll go through the first one. These 3 projects are in a tip amendment request action item based on the fact that they're all new project lines being added to the tip, or proposed to be added to the tip, I should say. So this first one is the Metropolitan Council's travel behavior inventory funds that were originally in the 2022 to 26 tip in 2022 as surface transportation block grant program funds. But they were transferred to FTA prior to state fiscal year 2022, and they are now 2023 funds. The work is all the same. It's just a question of what year they're obligated. And so the tip right now doesn't reflect this, and it needs to. I'll move on to the next one unless somebody wants to stop me in the middle. Why don't I just do all 3 and then you can ask about individual ones. The second one here, the city of Burnsville is requesting the addition of funding for preliminary engineering on its Tug Highway 13 Nicola Avenue intersection grade separation project that was recently awarded funding through the regional solicitation. So that is going to be included in the next tip, the 2024 through 2027 tip, but they were able to secure federal congressionally directed funds for the preliminary engineering, and that needs to be put into the tip in order for that money to be acquired and spent. That's kind of unusual. We don't often have preliminary engineering in the tip, but because it's not usually federally funded, but it's certainly okay to do that, and I'm sure the city's happy to get that from the federal award. And finally, MnDOT is requesting the addition of a new project line to accommodate early development of crossover and construction and drainage for its Minnesota 65 pavement rehabilitation project. Funding is through the National Highway Performance Program. That's not a regional solicitation program, and it would be reflected here in this right column with funding taken away from this left column. So it's a zero-sum funding. It's just one element of the project needs to be obligated earlier than the main part of the project in order to do this crossover construction and drainage. And with that, I would stand for questions on any of the 3 or the whole process.
Thank you, Joe. Just a reminder for members, if you are not speaking, could you please mute yourself so we don't have background noise coming in? Anybody have any questions for Joe? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion for this item.
Madam Chair, this is Joe with Anoka. I'd make the motion to approve these 3.
Thank you, Joe. In a second.
Ashfeld, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this item from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye by roll call. Joe?
McPherson.
Aye.
Robjan.
Aye.
Labrie.
Aye.
Ellos.
Aye.
Mareck.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Dahlheimer.
Aye.
Witter.
Aye.
Coach Sukos.
Aye.
D. Peterson. Michael Larson,
Aye.
Carrington,
Aye.
Crockett,
Aye.
AO,
Aye.
Reef.
Aye.
Fighton, you weren't here, right? Parthi? Nope. Eddie,
Aye.
Sabota.
Aye.
You are here. Okay. Turner Bargan,
Aye.
Keel, Keel. Hope he's here. Howley,
Aye.
Homie,
Aye.
Ellis,
Aye.
Kozlucher,
Aye.
Ashfeld,
Aye.
Beckwith,
Aye.
Hager,
Aye.
Mayel,
Aye.
Nick Peterson.
Aye.
Dermody.
Aye.
You know, if I missed anybody, I skipped a couple names that had not called in the minutes.
Keel votes aye. Sorry, I had a mute issue there.
Thank you, Karl. All right.
Joe, I'm here also. I don't know, I might have answered the wrong name.
No, I caught you, Innocent. Thank you.
Okay, that motion carries. 20. Is that a mistake there, Joe? It should be 2023-14, not 2022. On the agenda, it's right on your action.
If that's what it says in the agenda, that is incorrect. Thank you. Yes, it is 2023-14, and this is our second group of 3 tip amendment requests. I'll just sit down to this. So this first one is a request from Hennepin County, and they request to change the scope of their CSAH 52 or Hennepin Avenue Bikeway project that would undo a tip amendment approved by the council in November. This action would add bus rapid transit platforms to the project description and adjust the cost accordingly. A recent decision by FHWA reversed its original ruling disallowing adjacent BRT work to be included in local federal projects. This is a regional solicitation project that's essentially exactly being restored to its original tip description. So in November or maybe October, either October or November, you saw a tip amendment request that crossed this line out and changed to these smaller funding amounts. This is really just undoing that and restoring the tip to its original description and funding amount. And it's due to some FHWA processes that changed that I frankly don't understand. But they did reverse a ruling that caused a administrative need to amend this project, and now we're just undoing that. Hope that makes sense. Second item is MnDOT is requesting a scope and cost reduction for its Minnesota 62 Millen overlay project in Mendota Heights. The proposed project would consist of shoulder repair and guardrail installation rather than Millen overlay activities. Funding for this project is from the National Highway Performance Program, and that is not funded through the regional solicitation. And finally, this one here, MnDOT's requesting a reflection of a cost increase to its US 212 rehabilitation project in Cologne to be amended into the tip. The $4.8 million cost increase would be covered by MnDOT and by federal NHPP funding, which, as I mentioned prior, is not a solicitation funding source. It is a source that MnDOT distributes in its processes. So there's no regional solicitation funds. The Gray project is a HSIP project that's not changing at all. It's just an element of the overall project, and it is just shown there for context, but it's the white project that is changing its costs right here. With that, I would stand for questions on any or all of the project requests.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody have any questions for Joe? Not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Joe moved.
So,
I
Harrington.
think it was Adam with a motion, and is there a second?
Innocent seconding.
Thank you, Innocent. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, All in favor signify by saying aye by roll call. Joe?
McPherson,
Aye.
Robjan, Robjan. Labrie,
Aye.
Ellos,
Aye.
Mareck,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
Dahlheimer,
Aye.
Witter,
Aye.
Kotsukos,
Aye.
Steve Peterson,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Harrington,
Aye.
Crockett,
Aye.
AO,
Aye.
Reef,
Aye.
Fighton. No, Fighton's not here, sorry. Eddie,
Aye.
Sabota,
Aye.
Turner Bargan,
Aye.
Keel, Keel, Howley,
Aye.
Omi,
Aye.
Ellis,
Aye.
Lucher,
Aye.
Ashfeld,
Aye.
Beckwith,
Aye.
Hager,
Aye.
Mayel,
Aye.
Nick Peterson,
Aye.
and Dermody.
Aye.
Keel is aye. Again, slow on the mute.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. That motion carries and those tip amendments are approved to go forward to tab. With that, we will move to the planning committee business and Scott will introduce this item. We have a presentation by David Burns. Scott?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So this is consideration of adoption of PM2, which is pavement and bridge reliability on the MnDOT system, and also PM3, which is system reliability and CMAQ, also on the MnDOT system. These are required performance measures that the MPO must adopt to maintain its federal funding in the region. And I'll let Joe go into that further.
Thank you, Chair. That'll be Dave Burns.
Dave, sorry.
No problem. Joe, if could you pull up the PowerPoint? All right, thanks. Dave Burns here. Happy to be here. I'm just going to cover sort of the basic PM2 and PM3 performance measures, as well as the congestion mitigation and air quality performance measures. These are federally required, and I'll get to that in a second. So yeah, overview. These are 2- and 4-year targets for the 2022 to 2025 performance period. Really, the goal ultimately is to improve project investment decision-making through performance-based planning and programming. It is a federal requirement for MPOs, and MPOs have until March 20th, 2023 to set targets. So the MPOs really have a choice to either support statewide targets set by MnDOT or set targets specific to the region. And just a note about CMAQ measures, these are sent jointly by both MnDOT and the council and have been adopted by MnDOT. There's a lot of coordination between council staff and MnDOT staff in setting these targets. A number of meetings occurred in early 2022 to mid 2022, and these have been adopted by MnDOT. Next slide, please. Okay, here we have a list of the PM2, PM3, and CMAQ measures. So as Scott mentioned, it's pavement and bridge reliability measures are the PM2 measures, and that is both interstate pavement in good and poor in condition, non-interstate NHS pavement in good and poor condition, and NHS bridges in good and poor condition. The reliability measures include interstate reliability, non-interstate NHS reliability, and truck travel time reliability index. Finally, we have those CMAQ measures, which include peak hour excessive delay per capita, non-SOV travel, and total emissions reduced, total emissions reductions of on-road source mobile emissions. I think there's a better way of saying that. That is just beyond me right now. So, quick overview here of the proposed targets. Okay, first, bridge condition. So the bridge performance measures reflect the anticipated effect of MnDOT's program projects. And kind of a note on bridges, one bridge can have a very significant effect on annual performance. So you'll see a lot of like kind of jumping from year to year. And this is because it's measured by deck area. So if you have a particularly long bridge with multiple lanes and that, you know, falls into poor condition, that can jump your statewide total up by a couple percent or even more than that. It's also kind of a binary. So if you have, for example, a bridge that dropped from like a 40 on deck condition down to a 39, it would go from adequate to poor and really kind of really move the needle a lot in a negative way on bridge condition. A good example of this is like Blatnick Bridge in Duluth Superior. So we right now are just proposing, since these are kind of planned and programmed and they are on the MnDOT system, we are proposing to just plan and program to support the MnDOT bridge condition targets. Next, we have pavement condition. So this is actually based on ride quality index, which is something that MnDOT measures for all NHS and interstate pavements. So pavement in good condition was actually at about 60% in 2017. So there was actually a significant uptick. As you can see, it's at 70% statewide. This is due in part because the way MnDOT calculates the ride quality index, which does differ from the federal performance measure. And due to this difference between the state's performance measure and the federal and the way it's calculated, MnDOT has set a rather conservative target, as the program pavement projects will likely not address federal pavement performance measures in the future. That is to say, MnDOT has a slightly different way of calculating pavement in good and poor condition than the federal measure, and the existing metro area performance is likely to be significantly worse over the next 2 to 4 years. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Additionally, I was just going to say, additionally, our metro area's priority has always been on the interstate system, just because that really affects the amount of people traveling more than the non-interstate NHS. And we are proposing a target for a percent of the system in poor condition that is in line with current performance. So moving on to reliability. Reliability is significantly improved from 2018, and this is the product of the use of pandemic era data. So when we brought these to you in 2020, the number of the reliability of person miles traveled on the interstate and non-interstate NHS was significantly lower in that existing metro area performance. But yeah, because of the fact that we're using pandemic data, there's just a lot of unknowns, and of course the reliability data is going to be significantly better than it has been in the past. So because of this, and we don't know how this may trend in the future, we are proposing to support the statewide target for this 2-year performance period. At that point, MnDOT and the council would reevaluate the system reliability using newer post-pandemic data in 2024, the midpoint of the performance period, and we'll have more current data, be better able to assess trends, and better able to propose a 2025 target that's more in line with the current trends. I mean, overall, is likely that system reliability trends back towards our typical values of 70 to 80%. So yeah, we have set a more conservative target, and then again, we'll reevaluate in 2 years. And then moving on finally to the CMAQ measures. These are jointly set by MnDOT and the council, and that is because the council is the only area in the state to not fully meet air quality conformance. The on-road mobile source emissions is set at 0, as we are only classified as a maintenance area for PM10 or particulate matter 10 for a very small section in Ramsey County. The 20-year maintenance area did end on September 24th, 2022. So it is likely that this is going to be the last go around of the CMAQ performance measures. So the amount of we have no projects planned or programmed within that very small area of Ramsey County, and thus the target is actually 0 kilograms a day reduced because there are no projects. The non-SOV data actually comes from the U.S. Census Bureau's American Community Survey, and it really does reflect a recent upward trend in the percent of travel from non-SOV vehicles, and an increase in travel by bike, ped, and bike and ped in particular. So we did go ahead and set targets that are hopefully achievable due to these recent trends, and that's an increase from 27% to 28% and 29% for 2023 and 2025 respectively. And then the council and MnDOT agreed not to change the peak hour excessive delay target from the 2018 through 2022 target, as this measure in particular is very sensitive to the impact of the pandemic and can be reevaluated once we have more current non-pandemic data. With that, I just wanted to note that there in the staff memo, we did say something related. If you can go down a little bit, Joe, to that staff memo, staff analysis. Yeah, this is actually specific. This is specific to the system reliability. It would be difficult to set metro-specific targets for the reliability measures as we are using that pandemic data, which is likely a bit of an aberration as compared to where we might be in the future. So as I mentioned, we will be monitoring that closely, waiting for that new data, and then setting new targets, if applicable, in the midterm performance period. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Scott and David. Are there any questions for either Scott or David on this item?
Madam Chair, this is Innocent here from the MPC here.
Go ahead,
I don't
Innocent.
I don't have any question. I just want to kind of expand on what David mentioned about the ending of the maintenance period. We reached the 20-year period for PM10 as a maintenance area in September 24th. That was the last day. So from that day, the Twin City area is now attainment area for PM10 as we were for carbon monoxide in 2019. So
Yes.
that's what, yeah.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and Innocent. That is a very good point. We are in maintenance, but basically, I think the deadline for FHWA for us not to have to set these targets happened to be, I think it was like September 1st or August 31st. So we just had to do the targets. But yeah, that is a good point. We are not in maintenance right now.
Madam Chair, this is Scott. Just a couple, maybe a little anecdote, background notes for the group. So like was stated, this is a federal requirement that we're meeting along with our safety measures that we've previously approved. Some of you were probably on a call last week, I think it was, to talk about potentially applying these similar targets to the local system that we invest in. And we had a pretty robust conversation about that. There was some concerns raised by staff and others in doing that right now, but I think that is kind of a fluid conversation that will probably continue. I think what I've been seeing, I guess, is that there is somewhat of a lack of connection of these targets to how we invest in the regional solicitation. So I think there's an opportunity to have a further conversation about that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions for staff? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the performance targets.
I'll make that motion, Mareck.
Thank you, Scott. Is there a second?
Second, follow me.
Thank you, Paul. Any further discussion by committee members? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye by roll call. Joe?
McPherson,
Aye.
Robjan,
Aye.
Labrie,
Aye.
Ellos,
Aye.
Mareck,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
Dahlheimer,
Aye.
Witter,
Aye.
Kotsukos,
Aye.
Steve Peterson,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Harrington, Harrington, Crockett,
Aye.
AO,
Hi.
Reef,
Aye.
Eddie,
Aye.
Sabota,
Aye.
Turner Bargan,
Aye.
Keel,
Aye.
Howley,
Aye.
Homie,
Aye. Hey, Joe, check your mic. You're a little bit distant.
really. Ellis,
Aye.
Lucher,
Aye.
Ashfeld,
Aye.
Thompson, sorry, Beckwith,
Aye.
Hager,
Aye.
Mayel,
Aye.
Nick Peterson,
Aye.
Dermody,
Aye.
That's
That
the-
motion carries, and that concludes the items from the planning committee. And so we will move on to funding and programming. And Karl chaired the last funding and programming committee meeting. Karl, hopefully your
Thank you,
unmute button's working. Awesome.
Yeah, I think you can hear me. Thank you.
We can, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have, this morning, we have 3 program year extensions and 2 scope changes, and we'll just run through each of them. The first item, 2023-08, is a request from Hennepin County on their Midtown Greenway ADA access project. And the request is to move that from funding year 23 to funding year 24. This project was awarded $1.1 million in the 2018 solicitation, and they're requesting that this be moved one program year due to difficulties they've been experiencing with public engagement, primarily due to the challenges posed by COVID. So as with all our program year extensions, we have a little worksheet that staff goes through to see how much progress has been made on the project, and to make sure that the applicants have been diligent in delivering the projects. We require a minimum score of 7. This project received a score of 8. So at funding and programming, there was a unanimous recommendation for approval. And so just to get discussion going on behalf of funding and programming, I would move that we approve this request by Hennepin County to extend from 23 to 24.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I was seconded AO.
Thank you, Innocent. Any discussion by committee members? Okay, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye by roll call. Joe?
5 more to go. McPherson,
Aye.
Robjan,
Aye.
Labrie,
Aye.
Ellos,
Aye.
Mareck,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
Dahlheimer,
Aye.
Witter,
Aye.
Coach Sukos,
Aye.
Steve Peterson,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Harrington, Crockett,
Aye.
AO,
Aye.
Reef,
Aye.
Eddie,
Aye.
Sabota,
Aye.
Turner Bargain,
Aye.
Keel,
Aye.
Howley,
Aye.
Omi,
Aye.
Ellis,
Aye.
Kozlucher,
Aye.
Ashfeld,
Aye.
Beckwith,
Aye.
Hager,
Aye.
Mayel,
Aye.
Nick Peterson,
Aye.
and Dermody.
Aye.
That motion carries. Next item, 2023-09. Karl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is another request from Hennepin County, and this one is for their Vernon Avenue Bridge project over the Canadian Pacific Railway. Again, they're requesting a move from program year 23 to 24. This project was originally awarded $7 million in the 2018 solicitation, and they're asking for a delay to allow this project to align with an adjacent project going to be constructed by Edina. And so this is really more of a scheduling situation. The score, having looked at the scoring on our little worksheet, this project scored an 8, which is above the minimum of 7 that we require. So this had a unanimous recommendation from funding and programming, and on behalf of funding and programming, I would move approval of this item.
Thank you, Karl. Is there a second?
Turner Bargain, second.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Any discussion from committee members? And seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye by roll call. Joe?
McPherson,
Aye.
Robjan,
Aye.
Labrie,
Aye.
Ellos,
Aye.
Mareck,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
Dahlheimer,
Aye.
Witter,
Aye.
Kotsukos,
Aye.
Peterson,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Harrington, Crockett.
Aye.
AO,
Aye.
Reef,
Aye.
Eddy,
Aye.
Sabota,
Aye.
Turner Bargain,
Aye.
Keel,
Aye.
Howley,
Aye.
Omi,
Aye.
Ellis,
Aye.
Kozlucher,
Aye.
Ashfeld,
Aye.
Thompson. Oh, sorry. Beckwith,
Aye.
Hager,
Aye.
Mayel,
Aye.
McPeterson,
Aye.
and Dermody.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And moving on to 2023-10, Karl.
Madam Chair, this item is a request from the City of St. Paul to move their Kellogg Bridge Replacement Project from Broadway to Maria Avenue from program year 23 to program year 24. This project received $7 million in the 2020 solicitation. Increases in their projected costs due to supply chain and ongoing inflation has caused funding concerns for St. Paul, and they're asking for a delay in the project to secure their funding. Again, reviewing the program worksheet, this project has been moving along and received a score of 10, where a minimum of 7 is required for our recommendation. This request received unanimous approval from Funding and Programming, and on behalf of the committee, I will make a motion to approve this item.
Second, Mareck.
Thank you. Any discussion from the committee members? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye by roll call. Joe?
McPherson,
Aye.
Robjan,
Aye.
Labrie,
Aye.
Ellos,
Aye.
Mareck,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
Dahlheimer,
Aye.
Witter,
Aye.
Kotsukos,
Aye.
Peterson, Steve,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
McCartney, Crockett,
Aye.
AO,
Aye.
Reef,
Aye.
Eddy,
Aye.
Sabota,
Aye.
Turner Bargain,
Aye.
Keel,
Aye.
Howley,
Aye.
Omi,
Aye.
Ellis,
Aye.
Kozlucher,
Aye.
Ashfeld,
Aye.
Beckwith,
Aye.
Hager,
Aye.
Mayel,
Aye.
Nick Peterson.
Aye.
And Dermody.
Aye.
That motion carries, and we are moving on to the scope change items 2023-11, Karl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request from MnDOT for a change to their Trunk Highway 13 cable barrier median project. They are asking to remove approximately 1.3 miles of this project from the total 2.9 mile project. This project was originally awarded funds in the amount of $425,000 from the 2020 HSIP solicitation. And the amount that they're, just as a note, the amount that they're removing equates to about $201,000 of that amount. This project is, this request for a scope change is to remove these components to better coordinate with two projects that are going on in the area. One, a project from MnDOT, and another on Nicollet Avenue by the city of Burnsville. It has been stated that the removed portion of this project, the 1.3 miles, will be constructed as part of those other projects. So there is a commitment made that the total project as originally applied for will be completed. As part of the analysis of scope changes, staff takes a look at the scoring to see if by removing these components of the project, the project would have still scored as high as it did originally, and to speculate on its chances of funding at the time had it been removed originally. The analysis of scoring indicated that there was a low likelihood that the score would have changed. And so really they felt that even if that piece was not part of the original application, it would have likely received funding. I think, as the chair noted, there is always a discussion on these types of projects of whether the project should retain the equivalent amount of federal dollars that equates to the portion that is removed. Again, in this case, that's $201,000. After a significant discussion of this at the committee, it was kind of acknowledged that in recent years it has been the practice of TAC and TAB to let the sponsor retain those funds if those components of the project will be constructed by somebody else. And so, consistent with that, the recommendation from Funding and Programming, which was a unanimous recommendation, was to approve this scope change with the proviso that the full amount be retained by the applicant. So on behalf of Funding and Programming, I would move that.
Thank you, Karl. Is there a second?
Second, Omi.
Thank you, Paul. Any discussion from committee members? Okay, seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye by roll call, Joe.
McPherson.
Aye.
Robjet.
Aye.
Labrie.
Aye.
Ellos.
Aye.
Mareck.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Dahlheimer.
Aye.
Witter.
Aye.
Kotsukos.
Aye.
Steve Peterson.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Crockett.
Aye.
Ao.
Aye.
Reef.
Aye.
Eddie.
Aye.
Sabota.
Aye.
Turner Bargan.
Aye.
Keel.
Aye.
Cowley.
Aye.
Omi.
Aye.
Ellis.
Aye.
Kozlucher.
Aye.
Ashfeld.
Aye.
Beckwith.
Aye.
Hager.
Aye.
Mayel.
Aye.
Nick Peterson.
Aye.
And Dermody.
Aye.
That motion carries. Thank you. And our final funding and programming item 2023-12, Karl.
So this item is a request from the City of St. Paul to remove a portion of its fish hatchery trail project. They are asking to remove the slope stabilization of this project, which is adjacent to Trunk Highway 10 or 61, kind of shown on the right of the drawing here in the blue area. The original application proposed to reconstruct this trail and to provide stabilization of the slope adjacent to the trunk highway system. As the project has been developed, this project, it was found that the slope stabilization was probably better handled by MnDOT as part of a project that they're planning in that area. So St. Paul is asking that this portion of the project, which equates to about $260,000 of the original $2.2 million project, be removed, and that no reduction in federal funds be applied because this portion of the project, the slope stabilization, will be implemented as part of a future MnDOT project. So the committee, Funding and Programming, has recommended unanimously that this be approved. And on behalf of the committee, I would move that this be approved with no reduction in federal funds.
Thank you, Karl. Is there a second?
Second, Robert Ellis.
Thank you, Robert. Any discussion from the committee?
Madam Chair, this is Joe with Anoka. So Karl, that project is slated with MnDOT. That is a program project to replace that portion of the trail.
It's my understanding that they are proposing that work would be done as part of some work they're doing on the trunk highway system in 2027 and 2028. So I guess the answer is yes.
Okay, 10-4.
Madam Chair, I don't know the definition of programmed. It might not be programmed. It's the intent. I don't know that it's programmed for, it's not in the tip, for example. But if anybody here from MnDOT wants to speak to it or from the city, that would be appreciated. They probably know a little better than I do.
I would like to just make maybe a clarifying comment. The full trail will be built even with the scope change. It's just the slope stabilization part that would be removed and be part of the full MnDOT project.
Okay.
So it maybe begs the question of how important is the slope stabilization to the trail portion of the project and the timing of when these improvements come forward. Is there anybody from MnDOT who can speak to the MnDOT portion of this? Okay, not seeing any.
Chair.
Joe, does.
Sorry, Chair. This is Mackenzie.
Okay, thank you, Mackenzie.
Yes. So Fish Hatchery Trail and the area that is being discussed, this has been an ongoing issue for quite some time, which is, what led to St. Paul pursuing the regional cessation funding in the first place. And I will just say that the slope stabilization in this area has been addressed through sort of like interim means. And I believe that MnDOT will be continuing to monitor that along the way and ensure that the appropriate scope and work for that is included in the future project there, which will then also incorporate the bicycle facility, however that plays out with whatever impacts need to be addressed between those two pieces at the edge of the highway. But based on, I think, just the designation of that facility of Fish Hatchery Trail and the regional significance, local significance of that connection, it is an important priority that MnDOT recognizes generally that needs to be addressed with whatever we implement going forward.
Okay, Joe, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Yep. Appreciate that. Thanks.
Any further discussion from the committee? All right. Seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye by roll call. Joe?
Last one of the day. McPherson.
Aye.
Robjin.
Aye.
Labrie.
Aye.
Ellos.
Aye.
Mareck.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Dahlheimer.
Aye.
Witter.
Aye.
Kotsukos.
Aye.
Steve Peterson.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Brockett.
Aye.
AO.
Aye.
Reef.
Aye.
Eddie.
Aye.
Sabota.
Aye.
Keel.
Aye.
Howley.
Aye.
Omi.
Aye.
Ellis.
Aye.
Kozlucher.
Aye.
Ashfeld.
Aye.
Thompson. Oh, sorry, did it again. Beckwith.
Aye.
Hager.
Aye.
Mail.
Aye.
Nick Peterson.
Aye.
And Dermody.
Aye.
That motion carries, and that concludes the business from funding and programming. Thank you, Karl. And then we will move into our information items. We have 3 information items today. And the first one is on ADA transition plan requirements. Heidi's going to introduce our presenter today. And just for all of you and your awareness, as you know, ADA transition plans are required. But it's not just good enough to have one. You need to keep it updated and current and usable. So that is what we're going to be hearing about today, Heidi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Heidi Schauberg, planner in MTS. And also just as a heads up to everyone, we have heard from Federal Highway Administration that they will also again be asking the Minnesota MPOs to do a report to them again later this year on the current status of local ADA transition plans. So we've done 2 surveys for them before, and so just a heads up that your agencies will likely be getting that request for information from us later this year, probably sometime in spring or summer. And of course, we always appreciate your assistance with that required report to Federal Highway. So just as background too, we did have a request from a local partner for a presentation on this topic. So that was kind of the background behind our invitation to Dr. Eisenberg. And our presenter today is Dr. Yochai Eisenberg, who is an assistant professor in the Department of Disability and Human Development at the University of Illinois at Chicago, and is an affiliated researcher at the Great Lakes ADA Center. So that center is the federally funded resource center for the region that includes Minnesota and is a resource available to all of us. Dr. Eisenberg studies the ways in which neighborhood environments, policies, and systems impact community mobility, health behaviors, and health outcomes for people with disabilities using a blend of big data analytics, policy evaluation, and community-engaged research. His interdisciplinary work reflects his PhD training in public health and his master's in urban planning and disability studies, and is also interwoven in his undergraduate course that explores the links between disability, urban planning, and geography. So Dr. Eisenberg, welcome, and thank you for being here with us today. You should be able to share your slides. Thank you.
Just need to figure out how to unmute, which I think I did. Yeah. Thanks. All right. Thanks for the invitation, and excited to talk to you about transition plans today, and going to be sharing some of the research findings that we learned about implementing and developing quality ADA transition plans. And doing this presentation is in collaboration with my colleagues at the Great Lakes ADA Center and Dr. Delphine Labby as well, who worked with me on these projects. So wanted to start off, let's see if this works. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I wanted to start off giving a map. I always like to start off with maps. So that wanted to ask, I don't know if we can use the chat or not, what people think this is a map of. Anyone want to give a guess? Have to do with beer or hot dogs?
I would say pending federal lawsuits concerning ADA.
Okay. A good guess, definitely. So yes, this is actually not pending, but lawsuits that have happened already. So these are the dates are there, but they're kind of small. But they show some of the recent lawsuits that focused on public right-of-way. And when you look at the dates, you can see there's kind of a shift from the west to the east. A lot of recent ones related to sidewalks and curb ramps. And, I think this is important to bring up, not to scare people, but to let people know that this is what's going on, and that there is, in a sense, some justification for these lawsuits. And also, I guess, think to point out that, while I don't like to say this, I think a lot of the progress and the advances in the public right-of-way and in removal of barriers has come from lawsuits, either when a city has been sued directly or when their neighbor has been sued and they learn that this is something that they need to do and get focused on making those improvements or making their plans, which I think is a better course of action. The way that we try to promote is making a plan and showing your progress. And so that's what we're hoping to cover today. So give a quick overview on the pedestrian environment barriers and equity, why these are important, why plans are needed, and then share some successes and challenges with planning for barrier removal, as well as a casebook of high quality planning efforts that we are almost nearly done with development and plan to put out on our website soon. So why is the pedestrian infrastructure important? Well, for one, I already talked about the lawsuits and why it's part of, just federal law. But in addition, right, knowing that a higher percentage of people with disabilities do use the pedestrian infrastructure compared to those without. People with disabilities take higher rates of walking, 13% versus 9%, and transit, 4.3% versus 2.7%. But people with disabilities take fewer, shorter, and less spontaneous trips. And we know kind of from qualitative work that a lot of this has to do with the inaccessibility of the pedestrian infrastructure. So how does that work? Well, barriers, in a sense, disable people who have different kinds of mobility limitations or impairments, whether those be physical, sensory, or cognitive, by affecting people's self-efficacy, how confident they feel in walking and wheeling in their community. They limit people's perceived walking and wheeling destinations, and reduce trips to physically challenging and unsafe environments, right? So that's kind of the process of how things work. And where I see the biggest problem and where I try to focus attention for folks is that there's been essentially a lack of progress in barrier removal. It's not that MPOs, that local governments, county, state governments haven't been working on removing barriers, but there's been a lack of progress in advancing that barrier removal and in planning and in showing what barriers have been removed. So we know these barriers exist. When communities do nothing, this leads to lawsuits and settlement agreements. When they do something, when they're proactive, this results in a plan for barrier removal. But if that plan is not implemented, if it sits on a shelf, this could also lead to a lawsuit and further legal fees. I bring up the case of one of those places on that map was the city of New Orleans, who has a case in 2021 where plaintiffs argued that although the city had a plan, it sat on the shelf. They didn't implement a lot of the things that were in there, and the judge ruled that that yes, you're right, they didn't make progress on that plan. So the plan, the showing of progress, communication, and I would argue transparency, I think are really important to showing that an entity is taking this seriously. So what do ADA transition plans do? It's not like a lot of folks kind of knew what these were already, but just as a refresher, in case you don't know, ADA transition plans provide an understanding of the current conditions through an inventory. They lay out a plan for improvement that includes how, when, who, and what the priorities are through public participation. As an overview of our research, what we've done is started with a systematic search and evaluation of ADA transition plans across the US. And we analyzed the quality of those plans using a standardized audit tool that we developed with a group of experts. One of whom, if I'm remembering correctly, was an engineer from Minnesota. And then through that, we identified kind of this need to identify high quality plans. So in phase 2, we did some interviews with ADA coordinators and other urban stakeholders about their processes, and then systematically analyzed that using a validated tool for identifying what those metrics of success of implementation were. And then in the phase 3, this casebook that I mentioned is the phase 3 where we're developing this new resource and then doing some evaluation around it as well. So this first phase resulted in a journal article where we put a lot of our findings and shared that data and the audit tool that we developed in our process. The audit tool, I think maybe Heidi even posted already, and it's an Excel document that we've shared with lots of communities, and hoping communities, state agencies, MPOs use this as a way to help ensure quality. Again, it was developed with a group of experts who were architects, engineers, and lawyers. Overall, as a summary of what we found, only 13% of the communities we sampled had plans for pathways, and the quality of those plans were not strong, and I'll give some examples of what I mean by that. There were 7 of the 54 plans we found that met the minimum criteria for an ADA transition plan. And we also talked about how the plans themselves serve as an important kind of benchmark of where communities are at with barrier removal. And through the reporting of communities' own inventory, they shared that on average, 65% of curb ramps and 48% of sidewalks were not accessible. In terms of some of the plans themselves, these are some of the results for how many met basic requirements. And what you can see is, you know, we're not there in terms of even the you know, reaching 0.75% across those communities in terms of describing the methods, providing opportunities to participate, and having a schedule, right? A schedule is kind of a key piece to knowing that a plan will be implemented. Here's some of our quality metrics that have to do with, you know, whether a plan listed the barriers that they found, whether they targeted outreach to people with disabilities. This was a low proportion, only 18%. Funding sources identified, 70% had that, but you know, that shows that not everyone was thinking about funding. You know, something that an indicator of a plan having teeth is that it's signed into ordinance or some other regulation, and only 33% had that. And only 48% talked about monitoring progress, which I know is a important topic in your MPO as well, and something that you know, we found from those communities that were successful was a key part of what they did. So as I mentioned, after that, we wanted to dig into, you know, how do we understand more about what goes into making a high quality plan that gets used? And so we wanted to look at what were these different community, organizational, and interpersonal factors that led to development of more high quality plans. So we identified municipalities who had developed the plans and then recruited ADA coordinators and teams. Part of what success meant was that it wasn't just one person, but it was a team of people who were involved, who had different responsibilities for that implementation. And we conducted these interviews using a structured interview guide. We organized the findings using this template that other researchers have used to kind of define those metrics for successful practices. It's called the Consolidated Framework for Implementation Research. But essentially it helped us organize our findings and into these successful practices. So let me share some of those findings. First one is that overall there needs to be an organizational change to help build support, buy-in, and I would say sustainability over time, right? And with staff and political changes. Here's an example quote related to that. It's not just a block on a checklist, right? That's not what the intent of the ADA is, in my opinion. It's a complete philosophy change in the way that we look at and treat other people. It's a sense of awareness that someone who might have a disability still has the same rights and accessibility to everything that we provide as a city. It's amazing how a 30-year-old law requires so much handholding and education, but yeah, that is consistently being reinforced. And that gets to some of the staff change and changes in let's say the mayor or, you know, leadership, that there's this kind of need to kind of continually educate and reinforce that commitment to leadership, to know why this is important and that it's something that needs to be ongoing. Involvement of people with disabilities in planning was a key piece. for a lot. I showed you some of those metrics about the lack of that inclusion, but from the communities who are successful, they did share, some of their best practices and why involving people with disabilities was important. And if you think about it in terms of the lawsuits, right, there's a clear connection to having that communication, having that participation in setting those priorities and showing that you're doing that. I think that helps in terms of there's this motto in terms of showing a good faith effort to implementing your plan. And I think that participation is a key piece of it. And this was the quote, and they're instrumental in us developing the plan. We communicate to them what the plan is, and where they really got into the meat of the plan was how we are addressing our barriers in our transition plan and what we're prioritizing. And this often meant a disability advisory committee who was valued and engaged in the process of arriving at those priorities. Another key piece was the experience and training of ADA coordinators, whether they had, that people come from such a diversity of backgrounds, engineers, architects, lawyers, sometimes HR coordinators. And it's often rare that the ADA coordinator is just the ADA coordinator and not many other positions, right, in their local government or regional government. And so there's really a need for improving that training and support of coordinators. Some of the coordinators that we talked to, did have some strong connections. This person shared, I understand it. I grew up in Berkeley, so I know about the independent living movement. They had a long history and connections with the disability community that supported their efforts. There are, at this point now, several different kinds of trainings for ADA coordinators. Several of those are online and help coordinators get up to speed and learn some of those best practices. And they're through the Great Plains ADA Center, and you can receive a certificate for that. The last two bullets on this slide share some of those additional findings. Having that internal support and buy-in, but also resources like technology. Using GIS to its fullest, providing training throughout departments, and having these interdepartmental relationships are really key. Additionally, there's this role of external support, and that includes connections to regional and state organizations that help in both in terms of accountability, but also in terms of support and resources, whether they be around sharing inventory protocols or sharing different kinds of best practices, convening groups of ADA coordinators together, or sharing resources, right? Those are some of the different ways that communities have been successful when they have that support. So we're taking the findings from those interviews and have developed this new resource called the Casebook of High Quality Plans. It's 14 case studies of best practices of those high quality plans. And each case study is organized to show their process of how they did community engagement, inventory, involving stakeholders, funding, methods and schedule, and monitoring progress over time, as well as different aspects of implementation. So we'll be posting this on our ADA Great Lakes website, and we are interested in kind of obtaining feedback on it and other kinds of ideas for resources. In terms of what's next, we also received a grant from the National Science Foundation. We're collaborating with the University of Washington on implementing a tool that's called Project Sidewalk, which is a tool for using crowdsourcing and artificial intelligence to map, analyze, and visualize sidewalk accessibility for inclusive cities. So kind of taking a different kind of approach to that inventory piece, the data collection piece, and testing out its use in some different communities around the US. So if you're interested in that or the casebook, I know I heard the piece earlier in the agenda about performance metrics. Another current ongoing project in our ADA Center is to develop some performance metrics for ADA transition plans and their implementation. If you're interested in that as well, please let me know. Feel free to email me Here's my email, and happy to follow up to learn different ways that we can support implementation, or if you'd want any kinds of clarification on our research. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Eisenberg. Are there any questions from committee members?
Madam Chair, this is Scott. I just want to thank staff and the professor for the great presentation. Ramsey County actually asked Heidi to bring this item forward to TAC. So yeah, this is extremely helpful for us. I think ADA is a topic, that we all think about, and we incorporate ADA into our federal and state required design projects. However, I think Ramsey County, I know for sure, is going to be looking at this and thinking about how we can work on becoming more of a leader on ADA and be more intentional on how we incorporate ADA into our planning and design processes. So yeah, just thank you again for the great presentation and the great information.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for bringing it up, and glad you guys are interested in it. And like Heidi said at the start, Minnesota is within our Great Lakes region. We have there's a state affiliate that we are connected to who can also provide support. But yeah, happy to continue the conversation and identify ways we can support implementation. And
Thank you.
Karl, I see your hand up.
Yep, Karl's next. Go ahead, Karl.
Again, thank you, Dr. Eisenberg, for your presentation. I don't know if this is exactly on point because I don't believe these plans take care of temporary obstructions. I think we're talking only about permanent obstructions, but very timely in our climate is the issue of snow removal and a lot of very temporary but very real obstructions. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, or did that at all factor into your research?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think, it may factor in the ways that, potentially the design of the sidewalk and curb ramp environment leads to more pooling of snow and ice, right? So there could be that aspect of it that is more design related. And then I think you're right that there are these important temporary barriers. We haven't done specific research on that, but I think those include both the snow and then construction, right? We've also heard that temporary construction setup, the way that you set that up and how you set that up in a way that is accessible is really important to people. A woman shared the other day how she, fell into a hole that was being dug up on her sidewalk. She's a blind individual, and she fell into that hole walking on a regular route. And so I think there's a lot that could go into the design and implementation of construction. And if you're interested, there's a disability rights organization in Chicago that is also focused on the winter issues. They are trying to get the city to fund better snow removal processes and policies. And they have a campaign called Plow the Sidewalks. So if you Google Plow the Sidewalk Chicago, you'll see it's a multi-organization effort to try to get the city to plow the sidewalks. They're trying to learn from, I think the city of Toronto has a good program that they've developed where the city has taken responsibility for clearing sidewalks that they're trying to get Chicago to follow.
Great. Thank you. Chad, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Eisenberg. Chad Ellis with Hennepin County. We're working through updating our transition plan here, our ADA transition plan, and think that casebook would be a valuable resource. Just wondering what the timeline for finalization and posting to your website would be so that we could look through that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's in the kind of final, illustrations and checking accessibility phase. So I could follow up to try to get a specific date, but I'm assuming it would be in the next couple weeks. So yeah, I'll follow up with Heidi to try to share that, and maybe she can post it for this committee if that's helpful.
Great, thank you.
Great.
Any other questions or comments from committee members? Not seeing any. Dr. Eisenberg, thank you very much for coming
Definitely.
today and presenting this information. It's all super important, not only for the community, but for all of the work that we do here and all of the users of the system. So thank you very much for that.
Definitely. Thank you guys for the opportunity.
All right, moving on then, we have an update on our transportation policy plan from Cole.
Joe, if you have it ready, I don't have it pulled up right now.
All right, I will. So.
I'll try to be brief. I know we have about a half hour left and pretty important topic to discuss after this, but I'm Cole Henniker, Multimodal Planning Manager, and I'm project manager for the 2050 TPP development. As Joe's bringing this up, we have been working quite a bit over the last 6 months, backgrounding a lot of folks on the TPP. You can go ahead and go to the next slide once you're ready. And one of the things that we've been talking a lot with our working group on the TPP about is the ongoing studies that we have. And so just a reminder that we adopted the last TPP in 2020. And since then, we've been working on a number of studies. A few have been completed and some are still ongoing, and even more are starting up or have just kicked off recently. And so part of the focus has been on what are we trying to learn more about and how can you all participate in those studies, sometimes covering the scopes of work and other times talking about the draft deliverables that we've been seeing. So those studies are really going to be the basis for a lot of new policy direction or investment direction for the TPP, particularly studies on safety and travel demand management and equity. So that's been the cycle that we've been on. On to the next slide, Joe. High-level schedule for the 2050 TPP. As I said, we've been working on a lot of the studies to date. The regional development guide is being worked on, as well as the other system plans like wastewater and parks, all concurrent with the TPP. And so a lot of the focus in the early stages has been on that regional development guide visioning and trying to establish where we want to go as a region. And so we're going to start building off of that in the first quarter of this year to work on transportation policy plan visioning. And we've actually started working on transportation policy plan actions and policies, which are going to replace our strategies. Just yesterday, we actually had a due date for our first chapter outlines for staff internally. So we're starting to talk about those, and we'll begin writing those chapters later this quarter and into the second quarter of next year, with the plan to have some draft chapters in the fall to start talking about with our technical working group. The actual adoption process is going to occur for the majority of 2024, starting at TAC planning in March is our tentative schedule. Next slide. So a reminder on the structure that we're using here, relative to TAB and TAC in particular, we did create through the TAC bylaws an official 2050 Transportation Policy Plan Technical Working Group. They've been meeting after TAC planning every month since about May. And so we've been talking a lot about the TPP, but as I said, a lot more backgrounding to date. This year is going to focus a lot more on content review. That technical working group includes members from TAC planning as well as additional members from other agencies that we thought were helpful to have involved in the TPP development. And so everyone was given a chance to assign a different member than TAC planning, but just a reminder that that is the group that's spending the majority of the time reviewing draft content from the TPP. So if you want to revisit your membership this year, you're welcome to do that and let Jed Hansen or I know if you want to change there. We also have a TPP advisory work group. That group is a policymaker level group that includes TAB and Met Council members, as well as other state agency representatives. They've been meeting every other month or so. We're starting to have them potentially meet monthly this year just because of the amount of content we're going to start reviewing. And so they're kind of a go-between between the technical working group and TAB, as well as the Met Council and the Transportation Committee. So just a quick summary of what they've been doing. This content I already really talked about, but the one thing I wanted to know in the technical working group is that they will be receiving draft documents, whether it's through SharePoint or some other version. And so our expectation is the technical working group members will coordinate internally with any other staff from their agencies that they think need to review. So we're not bringing a lot of that content to the subcommittees or TAC. The expectation is that member will be doing the coordination if needed. So just wanted to make sure everyone's aware of that you're not going to be getting regular updates at this group, other than just an update on what they've been doing maybe every 3 to 5 months or so. And then we're also engaging the TAC working groups that have specialized expertise like transit and bike ped to talk about policy direction for those topical areas. Next slide. A couple of things that are already new that we're working with is some new terms and definitions. For the transportation policy plan, this actually isn't a dramatic shift for us, but for some of the other system plans, there is going to be more of a consistent look and feel to the language across the policy plans. We did get feedback that there was some inconsistencies for how the different council plans were using terms like policies and objectives and goals. And so the regional development guide will establish values and a vision for the region, as well as some cross-cutting goals that affect all system plans. And then each individual system plan will have goals that are specific to their system, as well as objectives, and then policies and actions, which are going to replace our strategies, but really will be the same type of information. What is our direction on a particular way we want to achieve our regional issue, and then actions will be specific to implementers. So we're working through reorganizing our strategies into policies and actions now, and very shortly we're going to start asking for ideas from technical staff on new policies, new direction that we should be considering for the TPP once we get people more familiar with the language that we're talking about for policies and actions. So that is kind of the focal point of what we're working on right now through the technical working group. Next slide. To date, the Regional Development Guide has brought forward a couple of different discussions to both the technical and the policy group, particularly focused on vision and values. And so we have identified some cross-cutting regional issues. These are, I won't even say draft at this point, they're conceptual. And the council's actually going to be discussing these again tonight at a committee of the whole. But some of the issues that seem to be emerging from all of their discussions across the different system plans are equity, climate, particularly our resiliency and climate change impacts, natural systems, and then public health, well-being, and safety. So you'll see these continue to evolve and adapt as the Regional Development Guide comes together, but a lot of the early discussions we've been having on the TPP have been related to some of these topical issues. Next slide. As I said, we've been working a lot on policies and actions. It is kind of a three-phased approach, reorganizing the existing TPP into the new structure. Currently, we're grouping policies and actions by functional area, like mode or impact. But eventually we would like to position them under goals in the current way that the TPP is structured. Phase 2 is what we're going to be kicking off soon, where we start to identify gaps and opportunities, and then incorporate results of studies and other engagement efforts. And then in phase 3, we'll be finalizing a list, reducing, combining, and eliminating unnecessary duplicative policies. And then we'll have really a draft list of policies and actions for further review until the TPP is adopted. So phase 2 is probably going to be the first 6 months of this year, and then phase 3 will continue into 2024. Next slide. Just a couple of, I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are some of the studies that we've brought forward to the technical working group. As I said, some introductions on different studies that we've been working on, and then in some cases, some discussions or updates on the work. And not just council studies, we did bring the statewide multimodal transportation plan and the state highway investment plan forward as those were drafted and available for discussion. So a lot of discussion about those studies and plans to date. Next slide. We did also have a discussion about scenario planning. This is something the council has been taking on as an exploratory exercise, particularly focused on different growth scenarios for the region. And the purpose here is not to select or identify a growth scenario, but just to understand how different growth patterns for the region would impact some of our systems. And in particular, because what we've been seeing during the pandemic is growth has really slowed for the region relative to the past few decades. And so we wanted to see, how a different trend moving forward might impact us rather than what we call the status quo, which is kind of assuming past trends would continue. And so we're in the midst of analyzing these scenarios. The four scenarios are really on a spectrum between low and high regional growth, and then between compact and dispersed development, and all of those compared to a business as usual. And so I think some of the information on how those would impact our metrics is coming forward to the technical working group in the next couple of months. But as I said, this is really exploratory to just help us understand what some potential risks or trade-offs of different growth patterns might be if they were to start emerge in the next decade. Next slide. So looking ahead to 2023, the first major task we have is drafting the 2050 TPP goals and objectives. I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. And then phases 2 and 3 of policies and actions. And as I said, we are starting to draft chapter outlines. They're very rough at this point. And so early concept drafts of our different investment chapters and other chapters like CMP are going to be coming out in the fall. And so the technical working group will see iterations of those over time. And so just kind of think about this year, setting aside some time every couple of months that you may be asked to review some documents and provide us some early feedback on drafts. We don't want to just bring a whole complete document, of course, in 2024 for you to sit with and review. It's a lot to handle at once. So we'll be taking it in pieces throughout the year and hope that helps alleviate some of the staff asks that we're having of our partner agencies. Next slide. Really quick update on what we're doing with a consultant right now. We do have a consultant on board to help us engage on the 2050 TPP goals and objectives. They're going to be synthesizing plans within the region and peer region plans. This is work that they're almost complete with already. And in the month of February in particular, they're going to be doing 15 engagement events, what we're really calling listening sessions with different groups of stakeholders. We have one scheduled with each of the counties, and then we're going to have 2 open house-style listening sessions for all cities in the region. And the invites to those will be coming out soon through the council sector reps. So you might want to look for those if you're a city staff. And really, it's to hear what are some of the issues and trends that you see that we think need to be addressed as high priorities in the 2050 plan. We just want to hear from a lot of people at this stage, and then we'll take that, synthesize it, see where there's some common agreement, and use that to draft a set of goals and objectives for the region. They're working a lot in February and March to do the engagement, and then the intent is that we can start drafting those goals and objectives in April and May. So this is a really big task for us this month. 15 listening sessions in 1 month is a lot, but we're working on getting those all scheduled, and hopefully most of you will have heard or will hear from us soon to look for those. So, and I just also wanted to note the goals and objectives, there's a pretty clear tie between those and what we're hoping will be the next task that Steve's going to talk about, the regional solicitation. So we really do want the next regional solicitation in the TPP to be really lock in step with what they're trying to achieve for regional outcomes. And so I think we kind of look at the TPP goals and objectives engagement as early engagement on the solicitation overhaul that Steve's going to talk about next. So I think that's the last slide, Joe, but maybe just confirm. Yep. So I would welcome any questions. Hope this wasn't too quick of an update for you all. As I said, we've been talking a lot about this at the technical working group, so just wanted to update you on what they've been talking about, but would welcome any questions you have for me today.
Thank you, Cole. Any questions for Cole? All right, not seeing any, so thank you, Cole. And now we will turn it over to, I'm going to my agenda, I think it's Steve, to talk about the regional solicitation, which feels so strange because we just finished the last one. So get ready, everybody.
How do you think we feel? Yeah. Yeah, Joe, this will be a combination. Thanks, Madam Chair. This will be a combination of Joe and myself here, and I think Joe will kick it off, and then we've got kind of three kind of distinct parts, and we'll see if people have questions after each section here. So, Joe, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair and Steve. So I'll talk briefly about the surveying that most of you received and many of you filled out before Steve goes into a bigger picture discussion. So just a couple of brief updates on the surveying. So after the solicitation process, we sent out 4 surveys. We sent them to tab members and we had 15 replies. PAC and funding and programming members, 10 replies, scorers and shares, 18 replies, and applicants, 17 replies. And one of the things we tried to do is come up with what we see as trends in the solicitation. In the solicitation comments and the survey comments. And I did attach those surveys results in full, along with summaries on each of these 4 for some some trends. The applicant survey is the one that tends to be a little bit different from the others. A lot of the comments for the applicant surveys are about like our web grants program, which we usually think that those are good suggestions that we get, but we can't always do them. It's not always feasible. The program is kind of static that way. As far as bigger themes, it can be tricky to pull themes out. There's a lot of sort of one-off comments, a lot of comments that are made repeatedly, but sometimes from the same person. But we do have 13 themes on the front page of the attachment, and they're shown here on this slide. Most of them have been themes in the past, simplification and discussion about modal and geographic distribution. We do see a couple of new ones. At number 3 there, more updates to the funding on the funding scenarios to tab during the process. I think a lot of tab members thought that it was moving really quickly and that things would change fairly quickly. So we took that as something we can address next time we go through the process and maybe provide more updates or earlier updates and make it a little bit less mysterious. And then on number 6 and 7, there's more people pushing for safety. There always have been some of that in climate change, but it seemed to be really big themes this time, more than we're used to seeing. So many of the changes, particularly specific measure-specific changes, are more likely to be addressed as we head towards the 2026 solicitation, because we'll be having a big review that Steve will be talking about going in there, and we're looking at maybe not a lot of big scale changes for the 2024 solicitation. Steve will also touch on that. I think another theme that we saw was that there's some concern around the impact of very high scores, particularly outlying scores and how they impact. So those are sort of some of the themes that we pulled out. You can ask any questions you might have on any of these 13 now or offline. Otherwise, we would move on to Steve to talk about the upcoming 24 solicitation and the review of the solicitation process.
Any questions for Joe on the survey results before we move on from committee members? All right.
Good.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, we got on the right slide here. So part 2 of our presentation here relates to the next cycle, 2024, and we're trying to tie a few things together here, and we did meet with Jeni and Brian Isaacson and F&P Chair Michael Thompson a few weeks ago to work through the schedule that was also attached in the agenda here. But what that led us to recommend in kind of overlaying the 2050 TPP, 2024 regional solicitation, and then this larger 3-year effort called the regional solicitation evaluation, is that there's only so much time that you have to devote to MPO activities. And so we need to kind of think strategically about how we kind of get through the next few years together. And so that's leading us to recommend what's shown in blue here, which is to advance the 2024 regional solicitation by 4 months. So that would put the open application period being this fall, closing sometime in early December. We did have a meeting with MnDOT Metro District and CO regarding the HSIP program. That was one question that came up at Funding and Programming. Well, how would HSIP kind of be part of this advancement? And typically their deadline is about 6 weeks later. So you may remember the last cycle, we were due around mid-April. HSIP competitive funds were due June 1st. So they were fine with moving it up and kind of keeping the final decision of HSIP and the solicitation kind of being in 1 month, but we would continue to stagger that HSIP application period by that 6 weeks. So that would put it about February 1st of 2024 would be the HSIP deadline. So that I know a lot of the project applicants didn't want that to be the exact same deadline because they're doing both of them. So continuing down the bullet point list there, so that would put scoring in early, roughly 1 year from now, in early 2024. The funding scenarios, and this is really one of the key pieces, is trying to find time on Tab's schedule on yours, because the TPP public comment period, once we send out the TPP for public comment, then we'll have a lull in our committee work for several months. At which time we'll be able to go deep into the funding scenarios for the regional solicitation. So then the TAB decision would be July of 2024. And that would avoid kind of the TPP and the solicitation being a decision point both in the kind of late fall of 24. So we're going to move up solicitation. That'll be in July. That'll be done before all the approvals for the final TPP. So with that, let's maybe pause again, Madam Chair, and see if people have questions on this 2024 cycle, and then we'll jump into the 2026.
All right, that sounds good. Any questions for Steve? It's a quiet group this morning. I think you picked a good one to bring this forward to, because I have lots of questions, but all right, we will move on.
Okay, good. Next slide. And so the intent, I guess, also with moving this up is that, we still had 65 applications that did not get funded. And certainly we'll have a new batch that people are starting to think through now that they'd like to apply for. But the thought is to have kind of a limited amount of kind of material changes that happen in this 2024 cycle. And I heard from Michael Thompson, F&P chair, saying like, yeah, people are generally okay with the measures and how it works. Let's make kind of a minimal amount of changes and put our focus and attention into the 2026 cycle and dig into some of these kind of bigger issues. But if there's smaller things, like there's some rule changes, remember HSIP was one of them, kind of, can you win HSIP and the solicitation? There's a series of things that either came up during the last process or during the surveys that we'd like to bring forward. We've heard maybe given some increased level of points for safety or this or that measure, which I think that would be some good topic areas, but we really have the next 3 months to do that in with this schedule. So even starting at F&P this month, February, we'll be bringing some discussion items for that group with the application approval for public comment being at the April F&P meeting. So we really have three months here to make any small tweaks we want to the 2024 cycle. Okay, on to 26 here in our last 7 minutes.
One second before you go on, Steve, I see Scott has his hand up.
Thanks. Sorry, I can't see all the hands here.
No worries. Go ahead, Scott.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Just real quickly, and this isn't anything new, but just taking another opportunity to reiterate on the regional solicitation, how we select the project. So we put a lot of emphasis in the project scoring, and that's tied to various goals in the TPP and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we saw in the solicitation that depending upon the category and how much funding is assigned to each category, some of the lists we funded all of the projects or almost all the projects, and some of those projects towards the bottom of the list were actually scored pretty low as as you would look at the percentage of total points available. So I think this was also brought up by Tab. That's something to just think about for the future. That is that something that we're comfortable with moving forward? Like if a certain category, you might fund a project that scores maybe 50% of total points available, and a different category, you might only go down to 80% of points available or whatever. So I think there's a little bit of work we can do there in terms of being a little more strategic on where we draw those lines. And then also, again, I'm going to continue to talk about the performance measure issue, even though nobody's in agreement right now. But I think there is an opportunity in the future, probably not this solicitation, to be a little more strategic about tying performance measures to where we draw those funding lines. I was looking at the summary of our recent roadway funding pie, and we funded, I think, 8% of our roadway funding went to spot mobility and safety, yet we haven't been meeting our safety targets for like 5 years. So a little bit of a disconnect there. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks for the feedback, Scott. You'll like our next slide then once we get there here. So we did add something since F&P. So yeah, high five. And so here we're talking a little bit, this reevaluation, people that were around back in 2013 to 14, we did something similar. So the goal is to tie the new TPP, the 2050 TPP, to our project decision makings through the solicitation. And so that's why that will take kind of a couple more than we normally do with the normal solicitation cycle. And one thing, well, Lissa's not here today. I think Maddie's here in her place, but Lissa did ask that we do bring the scope of work through this committee and not the other committees. So we've been doing that as we move to the next slide here, Joe. Okay. So here's a few of the kind of major tasks, and certainly there's subtasks underneath here, but this will be quite a large consultant study that we'll be doing an RFP for, that will start later this year in 2023. And so that's, again, how we're talking about this overlapping of the 24 and the 26 cycle. So you can see some of the tasks we've kind of put forth here, kind of the next round of before and after study. What did we get over the last 10 years? Potentially some peer review work. I know we've done some of that over the last two before and after studies, but maybe there's something more there. Number three, the focus of the solicitation, where do the policymakers want to go with how it relates back to the 2050 TPP. The best method and way to allocate that money, whether it's a 2-year call for proposals or something different. Simplify the process, engage with stakeholders, document findings. And then we did have a meeting, I believe it was last week here, with many of the roadway owners of the A minor system. And that's where we further flushed out this concept of incorporating performance measures into decision making. And so we see that as a key task to be in this regional solicitation evaluation. Next slide. One thing we'll need this group with, and certainly even TAC planning and the TPP technical work group help on, is what is the best way to bring in those goals of the 2050 TPP? And we use safety as an example here. It could be its own application category. You could change the amount of money going to a certain application category. I think that Scott was kind of mentioning that. Could be a criterion, a measure, change the point distribution for measures, or it could be a qualifying criteria requirement. So there's lots of ways to incorporate any new policy guidance that comes out, and it's going to require a lot of discussion from groups, but we do intend to bring TAC planning a little bit more into the solicitation than we have in the past. Next slide. So wanted some general feedback on the scope. I know we're running short on time here a little bit, and some other kind of key questions. Maybe we'll leave that up on the screen here, and I'll give it back to you, Madam Chair, and just I want to give a few minutes for questions here.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
Any questions from the committee members for Steve, or any input that you'd like to offer on the questions that are up on the screen right now? I guess just to kind of start the conversation going, I would echo Scott's comments and express my desire, at least, for safety to be looked at, and do what we can in the short term with this next solicitation to really look for ways to advance safety in our work as much as possible in the next solicitation, and then take a closer look at it with the big kind of reevaluation for 2026. Just knowing that we are so off on our safety targets, and those are real lives, real people. So I'll start there and see if anyone else has their hand up. Again, we've got a really quiet group this morning, Steve. Maybe we could offer that we could, this presentation is up online, but maybe some email follow-up from committee members as they ponder these questions that you have on the slide here would be helpful for you all as you advance this work.
Yep, that sounds good. Really, over the next month or so, I think we're going to try and button down the scope of work, and as we can get the RFP out in a timely manner. So, over the next few weeks, if you have input, let us know.
Okay, so committee members, try and put that on your to-do list and your calendar. If you want to share any thoughts or input, you need to do that by email to Steve within the next, say, 2 to 3 weeks, ideally, so he has time to incorporate that into their final products. All right, we are just moving over our time together. Is there any other business or agency reports from committee members today before we adjourn?
Yes, Madam Chair, I just have 2 updates from the MPCA.
Go ahead.
The first one is that the Clean Car Minnesota rule that we implemented about maybe three years ago was challenged by Minnesota auto dealership, and I think this week the courts finally declared that the rule is valid. So the implementation will continue on that. This is the rule that will kind of help people to maybe ship or buy zero emission vehicles that have been available in other states. So they want to improve that in Minnesota, that people have the access to purchase those vehicles in Minnesota. Then I have a update from EPA. EPA released their proposal to tighten PM 2.5. That is the standard regulates fine particulate pollution in ambient air. Currently, the standard is at 12 per cubic meter, and the revised primary annual standard would likely be between 9 and 10. So this might affect some of our monitoring site that we have for PM 2.5. So we have to kind of continue implementing all the strategies that we can to ensure that we still stay within the standard or below the standard. So if this is increased or reduced to 9, between 9 and 10, there are some of our monitoring sites that are quite close to that number. So the MPC will continue to monitor the site and ensure that we are below that. And also EPA is receiving comments on that. So if people have comments or if they want it to be reduced more than that to improve air pollution or health outcome in the state, then they can send comment to EPA. That's all. That's what I have.
Okay. Is there like a link to a comment page or something, Innocent, that we could send to the group?
Yes, I will forward it to Joe.
Okay,
Yep. Thank you.
thank you. Any other agency reports or other business from committee members? All right, seeing none, do we need a motion to adjourn, Joe? I always forget.
No, it's not really. Most chairs just adjourn.
Okay, then we are adjourned. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.